how can India become a superpower? You must have read this rhetoric many times about how India is going to become a superpower, how we are on the verge of becoming a superpower, how it's inevitable. But what is a superpower really? And how do we become one? That is the big question we are asking today. And since we got the G20 presidentship, I thought this would be a great time to sort of ask this question to a person who might have some answers. Foreign policy and geopolitics can be an extremely complicated topic. So I got the perfect person for you to sort of decomplicate that a little bit. We have with us Indrani Bagchi. Hello, Indrani.
Hi, Meghnad.
She is the CEO designate of Ananta Aspen Centre. She has
CEO, not the designate.
I took your bio off the internet. This
You
is
should get
what
the.
the internet does to us. So she is now the
So,
CEO,
I
full-fledged
became,
CEO.
yeah, in April. Okay, so it's like
Okay.
8 months ago. ঠিক
Okay.
আছে, don't worry.
I'm okay with
It's okay.
making such mistakes. This is
No,
called
no, it's
explain
okay.
like content. This is
Okay,
the
fine.
first thing you explained to me today, so it's great.
That's
So
fine.
yeah, but just to give you some background on Indrani, she has worked with Times of India and she has covered foreign policy for how many years now? 20 years now, Indrani? Uh,
100.
100
100.
years. 100 years.
Close.
Okay. Okay, so just straight up 100 years. Cool. That's great. And so she has been covering foreign policy very closely. And I thought that this would be a great time to ask her this question. And for our union leader of spectators, we have our comedian friend, Masoom Rajwani, our fan favorite, as we found out recently.
Really,
Hello,
who are
Masoom.
these fans?
There are some fans, I can't reveal them.
All right.
They exist. They exist.
They exist, totally exist.
All right.
But my first question to Masoom would be actually, how much do you know about foreign policy?
Very little. Oh my God, very little.
Yeah, but do you know what our foreign policy is in general? Like, just tukka maro, so that Indrani can school us.
What are I just know that if you criticize the country, they ask you to go abroad. That's what my understanding is. Anything that you say कि ये इंडिया में गलत हो रहा है, they're like, please तुम दूसरे country में क्यों नहीं चले जाते? That's what my understanding is.
So,
But
but the
otherwise,
getting visa is also not easy. तो वो भी difficult है actually.
yeah, if you
1,000
have
days
to,
hai abhi to get an
Huh.
American visa.
2000 is
1,000
like
days.
3 years.
Quite right.
Oh God.
It's a 1,000-day waiting period
So,
for an appointment.
For an appointment. All right. I need to ask you this. Sorry for asking questions right off the bat.
yeah.
How many
Go
days
ahead.
do you have to wait to go to Pakistan? Because
Do
they
I
keep
have to
saying
wait?
no. In general, a civilian for what's the waiting period? Because they keep saying go to Pakistan.
So really, and I one of the things that I would ask you is Pakistan ready for you, or for
No.
any Indian for that matter? I
The
haven't
bigger
been
question-
allowed inside Pakistan for the last since 2007, 2008.
That's
They told me very clearly that they would not give me a visa.
all right.
Oh,
That's a
so
fair thing.
yeah.
So
I mean, going to
it's where you sit, depends on where you stand.
yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
It's not
But
like
so
it's not that easy to go there either. Okay, you might be asked to go there. Not like they're waiting for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's precisely it. How about Bangladesh then, Indrani?
Can you speak Bengali? Any of you guys?
Sorry.
Can you speak Bengali? Any of you?
I can thoda.
Not at all.
We Bengalis are the most, shall we say, chauvinistic people in this planet.
Okay.
Bangladeshis, of course, speak a slightly different version of Bengali. They have their dialects.
Right.
But let me tell you, if you cannot eat fish correctly
Right.
and you cannot stomach the correct biryani, don't even try.
Oh God, Bangladesh is also out. Okay, so that's our episode, guys. Foreign
But
policy.
you can go to but you can go to Sri Lanka. Nobody's going there.
Oh, that's
They
true. Sri
have
Lanka.
they have the mother and father of a debt problem. So go there, help the economy.
People
That's true.
forget that
Our
Sri Lanka is
friend.
a neighboring country.
It is. It is.
Yes, it is. It's and from
It
where
is.
you are, it's a little closer than from where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. But Indrani, if you can just quickly tell us what is generally considered as India's foreign policy in broad.
So India's say any country's foreign and India's foreign policy very simple. I exist in this world. I have a set of relationships that I maintain for a couple of reasons. One, your foreign policy has to be a reflection of your domestic policy for one reason that you're not an island in the world. You have friends, relatives, acquaintances, people who can help your transformation from where you are to where you want to be. And how you manage your external environment is literally what your foreign policy is. So that external environment, if you look at it in concentric circles,
Right.
so if you just imagine concentric circles around us, your most important relationships will be in your neighborhood, in your immediate neighborhood, because they have the power to help, they have the power to hurt.
Right.
Doesn't matter whether they are small or big. Just the very fact that they are on your borders gives them that power.
Right.
So that's one set of really important relationships. Your second, so one set of foreign policy there. The second set of foreign policy is your extended neighborhood. That's the second concentric circle.
Okay.
And your extended neighborhood, say, if you look at the map, can move from the Gulf of Aden, which is Yemen, at the edge of the Mediterranean Sea, all the way to the Pacific.
Right.
And south all the way, I mean, covering the entire Indian Ocean.
Okay. Got it.
So, and if you want to sort of cross the Himalayas, you have the Central Asian country. But this is that's your extended neighborhood. And that's another part of a very important set of relationships, because who controls the seas controls a lot. I mean, think of the British, think of the Spaniards, think of the Portuguese. They control the seas. So if you just look at the map between the Gulf of Aden and the Pacific, including the Indian Ocean, that's your next sweep of relationships. And that's really important for you, because who controls the seas controls that region. Right. And we know this. Why? Because the British were a massive maritime power. The Japanese were a huge sea power. The Spaniards, the Spanish, the Portuguese, all created their empires on the sea. So that's your next. Your third concentric circle is the big power relationships that you have.
Right.
America, Russia, China, Europe.
Right.
With them, you have a different relationship.
Wouldn't China technically then come into the second circle here? I mean,
China comes into all three. China comes into all three, because you share a 3,500 kilometer undemarcated, as in undecided border.
Right.
With China, right?
Which is called the line of actual control.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
And so you basically, so they are your immediate neighbor. They are also your first line of extended neighbor, and they are a great power. So that's again.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah.
So
our policy for all three circles would be different, essentially, is what this
Absolutely.
is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, your needs are different. And
Hmm.
policies are not just what am I getting from you?
Hmm.
Because they are also thinking, what am I getting from you? So it's what am I getting from you, but what am I giving you?
Giving.
Hmm.
And that's essentially where your policy comes in. But at its very core, your foreign policy is how you use the external world for your internal transformation.
Hmm. Okay.
All right.
But then in a broad stroke way, so like there is this whole thing about, oh, how Nehru had a non-alignment policy in the past, right? And that is what India has been overall following, right? Essentially what India was known for, I don't know if it's still known for this, that is where I think you can correct me, is that we don't take sides, right? Maybe we are not powerful enough to take sides, so it doesn't matter. But also B, we don't want to take sides between, say, a war between a Russia and a Ukraine. We don't
We have
want
a
to
very
take sides
diplomatic
between.
stand.
Yeah, essentially we are like, नहीं हमारा कुछ लेना देना नहीं है ये war के साथ, so we won't do anything. So essentially our stand is always dependent on our immediate neighbors foreign policy wise. But even with China, that is not true. So how would you define that then?
Okay, so non-alignment was literally a part of an older era. We
Okay.
use the words non-alignment, but the context in which we were non-aligned, which was in a bipolar world, it had the USA and it had the USSR.
Right.
Sure.
And so we didn't want to be a part of either, but we were. We were very much a part of the Soviet Union's sphere of influence. We had nothing to do with the Americans in those 45, 50 years. Because look at all your development assistance was coming from the Soviet Union. Your political inspirations were coming from the Soviet Union. Your weapons were coming from the Soviet Union. You voted along with the Soviet Union in international forums. So while you said you were non-aligned, you were actually aligned. But you didn't want to say that. That was a kind of hypocrisy that nations follow. Nobody says that we have to be morally correct. There is no policy that requires moral uprightness.
Of course. I mean, otherwise, how will we fight wars?
I'm sorry to be saying this, but anyway.
No, so absolutely.
Non-alignment really doesn't apply anymore because there aren't two powers anymore. There aren't those two poles anymore. What are we right now? What are we saying we say that we will not align with you or you because we are a pole. We believe that the world has become a more multipolar space because America is not as powerful as it used to be. China is not yet powerful enough. And Russia's on a self-destruct path.
But is India as powerful to take a stand to be like, I won't choose a side?
Yes. And we've always been that. Even when we were poor and decrepit, etc., even then we were powerful enough to take that stand. That yes, I won't. Now, to go back to the point you made about Russia, Ukraine, where we are saying that we are not. Yes, we are, but look at two things. What are we doing? We are not condemning Russia for what is very openly an act of violation of every international law.
Sure.
We know that, right? Because if somebody else was, think of just go back to, say, Iraq, go back to Afghanistan, and there was people condemned, right? You said, why are you violating territory, sovereign territory, blah, blah, blah. Russia's doing the same thing. And Russia's doing it with, Russia's losing the war and doing it and losing the war. It's not like it's winning the damn war. It's losing the war. But that apart, we have not fully condemned Russia's actions. Why? Because not because we want to stay even-handed, because we have interests. We have interests. We have opportunities. We are being opportunistic. We have interests because 50% of your weapons and weapons platforms comes from Russia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct? Now, you are right now about 100,000 of your soldiers are on the China border fighting China
Right.
or ready to fight China.
Right.
Right.
Where are they going to get their weapons? Where are they going to get their ammunition? Where are they going to get the spares?
Hmm.
We are dependent on Russia,
Hmm.
right? So can you really piss off Russia right now?
Not really. No. Nope.
But now here it is. You are also using this war because of the sanctions by the West on Russia. You are using this war to say, bhai, oil prices are at historical highs.
Yeah.
Russia is giving me the same oil for 30% less.
Hmm.
Think of Big Bazaar and Walmart. If you're
Yeah.
getting X for a 30% less on a Prime Day sale on Amazon, are you going there
Right.
or are you not? You are.
Yeah. We are going with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that act? So you're on that one hand, you're doing all this, right? But you are internally you're condemning Russia for what the hell it's done in Ukraine,
Hmm.
because you are going to pay a huge price for this war, and you have nothing to do with this war.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the price that you're going to pay? Let me just list it out for you. First, your price. Your weapons are going to become very, very difficult to get.
Right.
Why? Russia is going to be producing it for its own war, right?
Right. Right.
Right. Right.
They
Right.
have no place to give to you.
Huh.
Second, Russia is not an independent producer of weapons. Russia's weapon factories all use Western components, Western precision
Oh.
instruments.
Technique.
Right. Right. Right.
Now, with the sanctions on Russia, none of those components are coming.
Okay.
Where is
All
Russia
right.
producing its own weapons from?
Hmm. True.
See,
And the
so
and the third being, you mean oil?
no, hold on.
Huh.
Fertilizers. You
Fertilizers.
have
Right. Right.
you get most of your fertilizers from Russia.
Sure.
Kahan? Where are
कहाँ
you
से
going to
आएगा?
get it from?
Hmm.
Do we
So
still need to be an ally with a country that's mass murdering, which we have to pay
we
for?
don't. We don't.
Can we
We
have
don't
to
have to
find an
pay.
alternate ally?
So we look. So that, and there you come to the core of your foreign policy, which
Hmm.
is you need not one ally. You need many allies. And that is the core of your foreign policy, which is that I have a multi-aligned foreign policy, that I align with different people for different reasons.
Hmm.
Right now, I am there with the Russians. Why? I'm still there with the Russians. I'm getting oil from
Hmm.
them, which is cheaper.
Hmm.
And nobody will tell me where to buy my oil. I have to feed 1.4 billion people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for everybody coming to me and saying that, oh, please stop buying Russian oil and feeding Putin's war machine, you tell them that just pull out the figures. Europe, even after the ban, buys more Russian oil than Russian energy than you do.
Energy. They buy gas, right? If I'm not wrong,
They buy, yeah,
from Russia.
gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even that is that is also going down. And frankly, the
Hmm.
Russians hold that on them, because if Russia turns off the tap, the Europeans have a very, very cold winter.
Right. Right.
Get it? So the other reason why we will be opportunistic and keep buying Russian oil is that if I'm not buying it, guess where it's going? It's going to the Chinese.
Hmm.
All right.
Hmm.
And the Chinese are the kind of trader who will squeeze you when they know that they are the monopoly buyer.
Right.
So one of the biggest fears of Indian foreign policy recently has been to prevent an alliance between Russia and China.
But that would be near impossible to do, because I mean they're their immediate neighbor and so many relationships.
No, yes,
No?
yes,
Huh.
Yeah,
logically right, but politically not right, because China
Hmm.
is a bigger power, much,
Hmm.
much bigger power.
Hmm.
Russia has diminished its own powers
Right.
by killing its economy.
Hmm.
They don't have people because they're not producing babies. They're dying.
Hmm.
They're an
Hmm.
old country. They have their economy is only commodities.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
doesn't
if
it
there is
also
no
depend what Russia has to leverage with China? Like if they find a strong enough leverage, they can have a
and
strong alliance.
that is perfectly correct. But at this point, if Russia is so weak because all the sanctions that have come on Russia, Russia needs China more than China needs Russia.
Right. Right.
And therefore, if you've seen what happens when that power imbalance
Hmm.
happens.
Hmm.
To keep that power imbalance at a minimum, India continues to keep Russia by its side.
Okay. I mean, this went into a bit of a tangent. I'm not regretting it. It went into Indo-Russia-China relationships, but I want to step back a little bit, and I want to actually define what a superpower is first, so that like it becomes a little easier for us to answer the base question, which is how can we become one? So, what is a superpower? Masoom, do you want to give it a shot? Then we can go to Indrani.
Uh, I don't know. All a superpower is, from my understanding, it's not defined by how much we progress at the top. It's how much necessities are met by everyone at the lowest
Hmm.
level.
Hmm.
A superpower
Okay.
is, अगर कोई कंट्री में हाथ गाड़ी खींच रहा है और तुम्हारा रॉकेट मार्स पे पहुंच रहा है, तो इट्स
Hmm.
स्टिल नॉट अ सुपर पावर बिकॉज यहाँ पे नीड्स मीट नहीं हुई है.
Okay.
Growth of everyone is what should be considered superpower.
Okay. I would say, Indrani, you correct me, and then if I'm wrong, I would say a superpower is someone who is considered this pole, right? Which you defined, like in a multipolar society, in a multipolar world, we have this giant pole, which basically people are dying to align with us, because we have something to give to everyone. So essentially, we are a superpower, which is basically a lot of countries are dependent on us. Is that the correct way to look at it?
So that's both of them are one ways of
Hmm.
some ways of looking at it. My definition would be that a superpower will probably never meet the needs of its poorest people, but
Okay. Hmm.
but uh, this it becomes a superpower by the power of a couple of things. One, its ability to influence others' opinion,
All right.
Hmm.
and its ability to carry along other countries for towards its own position.
Hmm.
All
Its
right.
ability to innovate faster, harder, better.
Hmm.
Innovation is in many ways is the key to being a superpower.
Okay. Hmm.
And that when you are at that innovation space and you can innovate. See, one of the reasons why America remains a superpower is this power of innovation.
Hmm.
The so how do you create that ecosystem that
I want to
opens
want you to elaborate the first point a little bit. So when you say so a superpower is some like a country like ours, as an example. So we have to sort of create an opinion and then get everyone else to align with that opinion, essentially, is what you're saying. So can you give me like an example of how this will work, like
So
if you had to do it?
yeah. So look at it in one just take something very simple. Just take terror. Okay. What is terrorism? Basically, it means that you are using the fear of death of a mass of people who are civilians, but you're doing it for a political gain.
Sure.
Right,
Sure.
right.
Okay. When you're doing it for political gain, one set of people can say that you're a freedom fighter, or you're doing it for a larger cause, and therefore justify that. A second set of people will say, so there is a very commonly used line is, my terrorist is your freedom fighter. Correct. So
one man's terrorism is another man's revolution.
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
So how then do you come to a commonly accepted definition of terror?
Right.
So you can whittle it down to its simplest. Sorry, continue.
In this case, so okay, so if we take terrorism for example, then it would be from India's perspective something like, okay, so terrorism here can be religiously motivated terrorism also. It can be terrorism which is, let's say, some actors which are not really outrightly supported by a country invading another country or crossing the borders of another country to cause events which can act as terror events. Again, I'm just giving very generic definitions right now based on whatever I've seen. No. Okay.
So from our perspective, we will say that any senseless act of violence, regardless of its motivation,
by a group of people terror. Or by an individual?
Anybody. By an individual, group of people, country should be classified as terror.
So what Russia is doing right now is terrorism?
No. Russia is doing it is an invasion because it is a sovereign act.
Okay.
If let us say a group in Delhi's defense colony decides that they want to commit mayhem in the areas around it, whatever, that is terror.
Would nationalism be terrorism then?
Yes, it is left-wing terrorism.
Right.
Because there is an extremist ideology there. It has nothing to do with religion. That's why I said not about religion. It is not just religion. There is left-wing ideologies. There are other cults, etc. There are lone wolf terror acts like
I would say. I just remembered when the Dera Sacha Sauda chief was arrested. Right, there was this massive protest that broke out. Yes. I wouldn't even call it a protest. His supporters in Haryana went nuts and they started rampaging around in different cities. Is that also terrorism then?
No, that is a law and order problem.
Right. Okay.
That's a serious. That's just violence and a law and order problem.
Right.
But think of the gunman who walks into a kindergarten school and opens a submachine gun.
Right.
That is also an act of terror.
So you are saying there should be call for violence, only then it qualifies for terrorism. Otherwise it's a law and order problem.
So 30,000 people protesting because their leader has been arrested is a law and order problem. That's not.
What if that protest turns violent? What if people
even if that protest turns violent, it still is a law and order problem. That is there for the authorities, for the state to go after, and it is within a state. But if there is a person who steps out in a jeep and rams into a bus full of people, and the explosives in his jeep goes off. That is terror.
Sure. Okay.
So
Okay. Got it.
there is a difference. There is a little bit of a difference. You can't classify every violent incident as terrorism. Riots are all perfectly okay. They're just violence. That's not terror. But if you use a weapon, or see, when Rajiv Gandhi died and they went after Sikhs in Delhi and elsewhere, in a sense, the debate would be, is that terrorism or is that just genocide? Because you are in a
Right.
position of power and you use that power to actually kill and murder your own people.
Here we go for a break. Come back afterwards because I have a bunch of other questions to ask, including what is India's current status in the world right now. See you after the break.
Hey everyone, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. Attention please! Your favorite finance podcast is getting bigger and better. For all you loyal listeners, we present you Club Paisa Vaisa. What's special? Well, get the latest episodes 3 days before release, content that is ad-free, bonus content and access to the full show archive. So get your yearly membership today for only rupees $6.99. Log on to club.ivmpodcast.com/paisavaisa. On Cyrus Says, joining Cyrus is his friend, comedian and actor Suresh Menon. Their conversation ranges from taking digs at one another to Suresh's current corporate stint. On This Round is on Me, Gauri welcomes the pioneer of the Indian fine dining business, Rahul Akerkar. They talk about the ins and outs of creating a successful restaurant brand and Rahul's journey so far. On Pop Rap, Snehil, Abbas and Antariksh discuss the movies and TV shows they are looking forward to the most in 2023. And on The Origin of Things, Chuck drops hints about one of the most famous figures in the world of rock music. Tune into the episode to find out who it is. Once again, do not forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have got some super cool and exciting stuff over there for you and your loved ones. Follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, do spread the word. You know, it really helps us a lot. And of course, do not forget to rate and review our shows wherever you are listening to them. You can also find all our video shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcast. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Kotak Privilege Program, Capgemini and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hello and welcome back to Explain Like I'm 10. Today we are here with Indrani Bagchi, who is going to school us on foreign policy because clearly we have a lot of questions here. Masoom, I think we before the break we got into the terrorism and what is not terrorism rabbit hole. But we should get out a little bit because I have to also sort of ask Indrani how to become a superpower. So tell me, Indrani, like very honestly, right now we are projecting a lot on the global stage. I would say we are projecting that, okay, so we have a lot of say. As you said, like we are creating our own definitions, which we are trying to get other countries to align to. Maybe smaller countries, G20 nations now that we have presidency. How realistic is that projection? And what is really happening there? Like, how much of a superpower are we exactly right now?
So again, goes back to the definition of a superpower. If you look at the power of persuasion, if you look at the power of persuasion as I would say that we are doing quite well. We are doing quite well. I mean, just go back to the recent G20 summit in Bali.
Yeah.
And you don't have to hear it from the Indians, but frankly, if it wasn't for the Indians, we would not have had an outcome in Bali. So without India, we would have not had an outcome statement where one of the things that the Indians did was to keep everybody around the table, at the table. There is no international space where if you walk away, things happen. They don't.
So if I
The only
understand
thing
correctly, sorry, if I understand correctly, like just to give some context to this Bali situation, Russia refused to attend this, right? Because they're like, हम किसी से भी बात नहीं कर सकते, like because everybody is sanctioning us, and what is the point of us being there? So
Right.
initially, then I think India played a role in sort of
actually the
convincing them
other
to
way
have
around, sir.
someone. Okay,
The other way around too, because the
okay,
West said that we will not sit at the same table as Russia. Look what they're doing to Ukraine.
right. So you were
It,
saying, so we
So
managed
the,
to
we,
resolve this situation.
so we, so the ability to bring both sides to the table
Hmm.
and to find an outcome that works for both sides. It's not optimal. So obviously suboptimal, but it's still to at least to cement the portions of agreement.
I
Is
had to ask you
important.
this.
Mm.
Can a country survive without having any foreign relationships? Like a country like North Korea, which is just, they rarely, from my understanding, they
So
rarely depend or interact. They're just within themselves.
so the Koreans get a lot of assistance from China.
China, yeah.
That's their prime
Ally.
supporter. Yeah. Second, if you have a country A as small as North Korea, B in a system where only one man rules,
Right.
you can do a lot. I mean, there is no Twitter in China. There
Yeah.
is no Facebook in China. They function.
Hmm.
If you have a Weibo thread or trend with Winnie the Pooh, it is taken
Hmm.
off
Hmm.
because Winnie the Pooh is believed to be a parody of Xi Jinping.
Hmm.
So
All
it's taken
right.
off. People live like that. They have lived under zero COVID lockdowns for the last 3 years.
Right.
It's possible.
You
It's not
you defi-
possible in democratic societies, however.
Huh.
The point that I'm trying to make and the question that you asked, it's not possible in democratic societies.
All right.
Democratic societies, because you keep going back to the people for your votes. You keep going. There is a sense of that legitimacy cycle that you have. You can't do that. And
All
in
right.
today's day and age, where let's say, look at India, could we survive without a foreign policy? I don't think
We
so.
won't. We
Nope.
won't because I mean, so if it from our situation, I think of course, our border is also intense. I would say, like everywhere we look, it's like we have so much of an ocean, so we need to have like control over the oceans around India. Then I mean, there is Pakistan, there's China, then there is on the other side there are Bangladesh. So I mean, because of the diverse nature essentially of our neighbors, maybe we cannot afford to not have a
Right.
foreign policy. Whereas North
Indeed.
Korea is just like niche South Korea and we hate them. That's it. And of course, China se flight aata jata hai and we have a relationship with them. But
And
other
the
than that,
Russians.
and the Russians, huh?
The Russian, and because the Kims, the leadership, they don't like aircraft.
They don't like
What?
aircraft.
Aircraft,
So how do you enter and exit the country?
train.
No, no.
Really?
Except,
Oh,
except when Kim Jong Il went to meet Donald Trump in Singapore
okay.
back in 2017, 18. The Chinese gave him a plane.
Oh,
Are you saying there is no airport in the entire country?
no,
No,
there
no, there
is.
are.
All
There is.
right.
There is. I mean, the
But
leaders hate
where
it.
will they go?
Yeah. Where will
No,
they
but
go?
where will they go? They're not
Yeah.
allowed to go to South Korea. They're not allowed to go to. They have a land crossing to China. They don't go to any other country except for when their people get smuggled out, which happens on a regular basis. Generally, because the quality of life in North Korea is really not.
So the only leverage they hold is violence to get someone to agree to whatever they are saying. Like
Well,
you
nobody has
define.
agreed
No, but
Nobody has
so
you.
agreed.
far.
I'm saying in a hypothetical situation, you said that
Hmm.
a superpower is someone that can that can make people agree to what they are saying.
Hmm.
It can be either through leverage of resources, or one of them can also be violence, where if you don't agree with me, I can attack you, and you're being arm twisted and cornered into agreeing with a particular idea.
I can say something more than this.
Go
So
on.
that doesn't make you a power. That makes you an extortionist.
For sure, I don't disagree with you, but
There
just
is
the
there is
textbook definition.
that even in the textbook definition, you will find that there is when you say that I I have a greater degree of power of persuasion, it doesn't say that persuasion the minute you cross, everything has a line. There is a
Hmm.
red line for every place.
Right,
So
right.
when you cross that red line and you make that into a, I will use ballistic missiles to make you agree.
But that's also
It
an unsaid thing. Like, I'll cut down on resources, I'll use power, I'll use brute force. It's also an unsaid thing where if you don't agree, this is an option always that can be
so
used.
hold a question. The question then is, who is that targeted at? He's using brute power against his own people.
Hmm.
That's his choice. He's sending off ballistic missiles to threaten Japan.
Hmm.
He knows that he can't touch Japan without America getting into the game.
Hmm. Hmm.
But he's pushing the envelope.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that anybody is agreeing to what he is saying or doing.
But
So he
sorry,
remains in
I
he remains in this, isolated little space.
hmm.
So how does that make a power? That just
I
makes him a
just
blackmailer. That
For
doesn't make
sure.
him a power.
For sure.
I just wanted to add to what I think Masoom also asked, because okay, so there is one way, of course, that military conflict, like you show
Yes.
your strength as a military.
Mm.
You don't have to sort of say that, oh, you are going to attack, but essentially you have a very powerful military,
Yes.
and everybody has it in the back of their minds. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you, Indrani, is something like an economic sort of push. Like sanctions is one of them. So America or Western countries can afford to sort of have sanctions on Russia. So, for example, like let's take Sri Lanka right now. Sri Lanka economy going to the shitter. India, on the other hand, helped them bail it out. So now, do we say that for Sri Lanka, India is a superpower?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is, but not for the reason that you said.
Hmm.
India for India for Sri Lanka, India is the biggest power around,
Hmm.
with qualifications.
Right.
One is, see, remember, India is a civilizational state.
Hmm.
You may or may not call India a superpower because you are still existing on $2,000 per capita GDP, which really
Hmm.
doesn't make for superpowerdom. But we are a civilizational state. We have a civilization that goes back 5,000 years.
Sure.
The same way that China is a civilizational state.
Right.
We are
Hmm.
we are both civilizational states. We go in a strange way. Egypt is too.
Hmm.
Also, not a power in the modern sense, but a civilization.
Hmm.
That brings I mean, the fact that we are a civilizational state brings with it its own ways of persuasion and ways of exerting power. So for Sri Lanka, when they have to find God, they come to India. That's where God resides.
Right.
All right.
Right.
It's the same for Myanmar. It's the same for
Interesting. Hmm.
Japan. It's the same for large parts of Indonesia, large parts
Hmm.
of Thailand, all of Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, for all of these areas. India is much more than India.
Hmm.
It is a lot of this is where God resides, because they
Hmm.
come here for for religious
Purposes, yeah.
pilgrimage.
Right.
Pilgrimage. So that power and that power of civilization is something that we don't acknowledge. We are the last people to acknowledge that power, because 5,000 years weighs very lightly on us. It weighs much more on the people around us.
Right.
And so so remember, we were also a maritime power back in
Right.
the 10th century. We were a maritime power, a huge maritime power. If China and if you go to a place called Luyong in China, there's a pagoda. It's called the White Horse Pagoda, and Luyong is literally the place where one horse, a white horse, came bearing Buddhist scriptures into China from India via what is now Afghanistan and into China, into that.
Right.
And that is where Buddhism came into China.
Yeah.
From India. If you go to Japan, we have our goddess Saraswati. They have the same goddess for a different purpose. But again, because all of this went from here to there.
Even for example, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, it's basically the oldest Hindu temple. So it is a Hindu temple. So
Borobudur, Angkor Wat. So what I'm trying to say is our power doesn't really only come from whether you have weapons or etc. You can win a war. It comes from what you bring to the table in terms of a civilization. We are the last.
If I'm able to count, right? So like in this conversation, we have actually touched upon a lot of, let's say, powers that we have. One is, of course, let's say cultural power, what you just defined. That's cultural soft power. Economic power to a certain extent, I would say.
Certainly some, not enough.
Not enough, of course, not enough. Let's say military power, again, not enough, but to some extent. But also strategic power. Maybe strategic
power. Very
power.
important.
Yeah.
Very important is, and one of the things that, one of the reasons why, I always say that as long as we remain a democracy, we will always be a power, because the power of 1.3 billion people electing their representatives in a seamless fashion every 5 years, with the results being accepted by the losing party, is a treasure. We don't appreciate it at all. We are caught in, we like Modi, we don't like Modi, Modi is X, Y, Z. The fact is that elections, that is the core of democracy. That is the core. The fact that you can elect your representatives, whoever it is that you elect, the fact that you have that power. And today, it should be the source of our greatest power. But you know where we lose it? We lose it in the urban centers. If you look at voting patterns, urban centers vote less and less and less. Indian democracy is held up by rural voting.
Rural voters,
because they know the power of that vote, while in urban centers, we are losing an appreciation of the power of that vote.
So peaceful transfer of power is what you were alluding to.
Is one of the biggest attributes. Look at January. Look at what happened in January 6th in the US Capitol.
USA, yeah.
In the US, and this is the heart of US democracy, which is literally the oldest democracy in today's terms that you can find. We are a young democracy. We are 75 years old. The US is over 200 years old. Yet,
just because it hasn't happened here, that doesn't mean it cannot happen here.
Look, just because we haven't had school shootings in India doesn't mean we won't have. Of course, there
Yeah,
can be.
Right.
yeah.
But
Right.
I mean, that goes without saying. But when we go down that particular rabbit hole, we risk losing what we have.
Hmm. Hmm.
We risk the loss of appreciation of what we have. So you might elect whoever you want in Maharashtra, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, wherever. The fact that you can elect so many different types, the fact that the people who win elections are also the people who lose elections, is the key touchstone of our democracy. As long as we remain there, everything else we'll be able to work out. And that
Makes
is the
sense.
core of our power.
I wanted to shift a little bit to where we stand essentially. So okay, one base question here. I think Masoom, you might also like give it a shot. Do you think these world indexes matter at all? Right, like Press Freedom Index, Human Development Index. We keep seeing headlines of our ranking there. Do you think it matters to you in general?
Who's going first?
Masoom, I'm asking you first, then I'll
100%.
go to you.
100%.
Okay, why does
Especially
it
the
matter to you?
press index. I don't know how honest the reports are, but
Hmm.
hoping that the reports are honest, I would like to know how much freedom or where does my country stand, because where my country stands also reflects on where I stand and what I get or
Hmm.
what is being
Hmm.
given to me. I would
Hmm.
like to know मेरा news कितना honest है, मेरे air का quality क्या है, India में hunger कितना है. It's a
Hmm.
very important thing.
That
Happiness index, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
happiness index. I think it's a little vague. Also, I mean,
yes, yes,
but like I mean, largely you care about it. Is essentially what you're
yes.
saying.
Hunger,
Yeah.
economy, press. I would like to know, because
Right.
then if there is an index, we have a benchmark to work towards. If it's
Hmm.
honest, मुझे पता है कि मेरा country 199 पे and we have
Hmm.
like 98 points to go up to. This is how much we can improve.
So, Indrani, this question to you, but in a different way, which is, do
Yeah.
you think these indexes really matter on a diplomatic level? Because, for
Yes,
example,
they do.
Human Development Index right now, we are 132 out of 182. Ease of doing business rank 63 out of 190. Press Freedom Index 150 out of 180. And Corruption Perception Index 85 out of 180. Do these matter on a diplomatic level when it comes to foreign policy also?
They may not matter on a diplomatic level
Right.
that much, but they matter,
How?
because even if people don't talk about it, it's at the back of their minds. And frankly, we should be ashamed at having a human development index being so low on the HDI scale.
Hmm.
That should be red flag for us. That it should be a red. All of these should be used. They may not be exact, and you will find many stories, many narratives that can counter this. That's true. But in fact, you can say that these should be counted better, that you should have a more honest counting.
Right.
You can say all of that, and all of that would be valid. Because you can, if you're sitting in Belgium and passing judgment on whether I have X quality of life or Y quality of life, you might say that, maybe you're not getting quite the place that you want to be. Yes, but it's not that that index doesn't matter. It does.
But like so
I mean, there is a very good reason why we say that a country like Finland has the best education system in the world.
yeah.
When you see something like that, then you look at it and you look at it again, because then you ask yourself that question: what are they doing right that I'm not doing?
Interesting.
So,
But
and
then
that is something that we really should be.
So in a way, is it related to whether we are a superpower or not? Are these indexes also like a marker of which country is a superpower or not?
No,
No.
because very unfortunately the world is a lot more cynical than that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if you look at, if that was the case, then all the 5 Nordic countries would be superpowers.
Yes.
They're not.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I would say yes.
I
Correct.
wanted
So
to ask you this. When are you really like for Sri Lanka, India is a superpower, but for other countries, we are not. So when do
yeah,
you actually become a superpower? There will always be
so
one country that's above you that might not consider you a superpower.
yeah, that's fine. That I
So
actually
what's the
don't even think that we should be a superpower.
Oh, that's
all right,
interesting.
all right,
Please
all
tell.
right.
Please
I
tell.
mean, in the sense that, see, wherever you, let us say that I have, I'm just looking, okay, look at the LAC with
Hmm.
China. I
Yeah.
could say that I have the latest, absolutely latest weapons there, surveillance capabilities there, etc., to be able to deter the Chinese.
Hmm.
That makes me, the fact that I have those weapons makes me a power,
Hmm.
a large power, a power with with a power of deterrence, that I can deter the Chinese,
Hmm.
right? Yet, there could be that one person who comes in with a bag full of explosives across the LOC from Pakistan and blows himself up, killing
Yeah.
300 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I look at myself and say, really, what am I thinking of?
True.
So I would say, I mean, I would say that that a superpower in that sense really doesn't mean anything. What it means is,
Interesting.
at which point are you successful in either pushing back or pulling towards you um, interests and forces that are either aligned with you or
Hmm.
sympathetic to you or inimical to you.
Hmm.
So it's not a question of power. I can say that I am 8 times the size of
Right, right.
Pakistan. I am
Hmm. Hmm.
8 times the size of Pakistan. Yet, Pakistan has the power to hurt me precisely by
Hmm.
doing what they did in 2611.
Hmm. True. True.
And it is sanctioned. It is officially sanctioned, religiously sanctioned by in Pakistan. What does that make me?
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
there is,
Indrani, I just realized something. At the 1 hour mark, I've realized this, that
yes,
my base question might have been wrong. I should have
yeah.
been like, should we be a superpower at all? That should be.
No, but
That should.
I think we're barking up the wrong tree.
Hmm.
We are a power.
Right.
We are definitely a power. We are a
Hmm.
power in so many different ways. We are a power by our very existence,
Yeah.
because we are a country with 1.3 billion people, and has been a successful democracy. We live with our diversity. We celebrate our diversity. If you put away all, you will hear every event that you hear that challenges this particular uh, statement of mine,
Hmm.
that we celebrate our diversity. We celebrate it in every other way. We celebrate it.
Hmm.
I mean, I can find you 10 examples of us celebrating it, and you can tell me 2 examples of where we have gone wrong. Of course, we go
Sure.
wrong,
Yeah.
Sure.
because
Sure.
that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, we are
Hmm.
human beings after all. We are human beings. We come from different histories, but we still live within this geographical contours, this political contours of this country called India.
Hmm.
And we are eating, and I can have food fights with everybody in this country
Hmm.
and say that, you know what, the Calcutta biryani is far superior to the Hyderabad biryani.
Hmm.
And I can have and I can say that if you don't eat fish, there's something wrong with your brain. But
Right.
you can turn around and say that if you don't eat vegetarian food, you cannot enter my house,
Yeah.
and we can still survive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we can still so as
Coexist.
long as we can do that, that's the power of of this country, of this
Hmm.
civilization.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when we give that up, that's when we give up a little bit of our power. So we will get weapons. Yes, we will be able to reach the moon. We'll be able to get into space. The two qualities, in my view, that would define India as the power is one, the power of the ability to leave your people open or empower them to be innovators and creators. The second is to be able to live with and celebrate democracy in the way we have, as imperfect as it is, because no democracy is perfect. Every democracy has its flaws, and we have ours. But but if you keep the flaws aside, we also have something very, very powerful. That for 75 years, a country of 1 billion people have been, apart from a blip for 2 years, we've had a seamless transfer of power.
Yes.
And that is, we don't appreciate us that at all. That then, and the fact that, that we can sit together at a table and have that 3 Indians can have 5 opinions.
Yeah.
That is important. Say everything else is a matter of how much you can buy and sell, and if you can buy the best weapons and make the best weapons, you can do it. You get there. You can get to the moon. But it is the core of what we are as people. And in my view, that is something that is what makes Indians the most attractive groups of immigrants in different parts of the world.
Sure.
Because of our ability to assimilate, our ability to integrate, and our ability to rise in foreign societies. I mean, why is it that when you are if you look at Western countries, etc., if you look at the pushback against immigrants that you see from different parts of the world, Indians are never there.
They aren't. That's actually very true. Yeah.
Except in places where they say that you are taking my job because you are just better at it.
Yeah.
So, and you're cheaper. So that is a different kind of pushback. But they're not pushing back because I am an alien and I live in ghettos and I am part of the non-integrated lot. I'm not. Half the time after the first generation, I become part of politics. I mean, look at the Prime Minister of Portugal. He's from Goa.
Yeah, he's from Goa. Yes,
right.
That's actually very true.
And the Vice President of America is from Tamil Nadu.
Yeah.
Right?
I absolutely agree. So it's actually very interesting. I like how this conversation took like a very different direction in places. Masoom, if you have any final question, because we have to let Indrani go.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to ask, I think what we are being fed is a very rat racy definition of superpower. From what you explain, from you, if trading is a metric, then that's a very rat racy way to look at it, because you'll always have more money to buy more things or less money to not afford resources. So that can't be the only metric of where you are as a country.
I think that is a great takeaway, Masoom, if I may add, that when you are considering something like this question about superpowers, it's very important to look at what you are good at as a society and then sort of project yourself according to that to the world, and also look at how they are looking at us, as you say, as a civilizational power rather than
so I'll just tell you, normally we are really chaotic people, and we live in a state of chaos which most people don't understand, right? But let me tell you that when we are right now I've been talking to lots of people who are coming in for G20 meetings, because we are the G20 president. They're coming in for G20 meetings in different parts of the country. We are. I don't know if you know this, but we are going to hold G20 meetings in all the 29 states and 5 union territories.
200 meetings, if I'm not wrong.
Correct. So they just went to one in Andaman Nicobar Islands, and I was talking to some of the officials who went there from different countries, and they were like, my God, everything moved like clockwork. So they
Hmm.
said, how did that happen? I said, that's because, have you been to an Indian wedding? It's chaos, but ultimately we get it all together.
Yeah.
It's
So
organized chaos. That's what it is.
correct.
There's still a
So
structure to
we
it.
it is not unorganized for the most part, but when we are called upon to organize ourselves, we do it quite well.
Yeah.
And so it's not like so yes, your streets will be dirty, your air pollution, but if when you look at your biggest group problem is pollution, is climate change. It's
Hmm.
not um, a whole lot of other trivial stuff that we
Hmm.
think of every day.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and none of these things, these are all transnational problems. But
Hmm.
you look at the way we now have become much more proactive on climate change. We are no
Hmm.
longer saying that it's not our fault.
Hmm. Hmm.
We are saying, can we be part of the solution?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how can we do that? So
Yeah.
we are taking a lot more of a proactive approach
Yeah.
to cross-cutting global problems. That is what makes you a power.
Right. Right. And I think we will have to end it here. But
Yeah.
Indrani, I would request you, I would love to do a part two of this at some point,
Yeah, because
just
I
on
just
the
got a question.
G20.
I just got
I,
a question.
yeah, but Masoom, we are out of time. I would love to get you on again at some point because I have so many more questions myself. You don't have time. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope that was useful for you also. It was definitely
I hope
useful
it was
for us.
useful for you.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
for
it was.
sure.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, it just gives me an opportunity to talk about some of the things that I quite enjoy, which,
Yes.
you don't always get to write about these things. But, yeah, a lot of stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Indrani, and I will catch you again in part two
Thank you.
someday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I
Thank
hope
you.
this was good for you. Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Thanks.